So I feel like I could let you guys go for like 20 more minutes. How did that feel?
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah? Any sticky points or any challenges?
This is stuff I've thought a lot about, this sort of thing, just personally, as I was going on and on to Andrew. But I think it's helpful to think about, okay, like what are the things you actually really want to be doing? What are the things that make it hard to do that? And then I love the concept of like recognizing both like physical changes in yourself and like emotional change and like how you interact, you know, with people around you, like whether you're shorter with them or more patient or less patient. So I've always loved this concept, and I've heard it described in a couple different ways too, but I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, and I think in particular for like your two who may not be totally thinking that your job is to help them think about this stuff, it may be a safe enough structure that it's like, I'm not telling you too much about my feelings, but it still feels productive. So we'll see in this coming year. And I think similarly for you guys, again, it's like a good way to productively reconnect, I think.
Yeah, I think that it's so important for us being physicians in healthcare is that patients drain our tanks. Sometimes they fill them up, but I would say the majority of the time they're draining them, and so sometimes that they're not doing it intentionally, sometimes they are, but we have to be aware of that, and we've got to figure out ways to fill ourselves back up, or recognize that they are. I think even more importantly is recognize that that person is draining my tank, or whatever I'm feeling right now is not necessarily coming from me, it's coming from that person across from me.
And that's okay.
And to kind of disconnect that a little bit and not walk out of the room. I mean, I haven't figured out how to do this, but at least being aware of it, and if we can somehow get our coaches to see that, I mean, if they're bringing it up as an issue, I think that could be very beneficial to them.
Yeah, and I think also it helps you then realize like, okay, this is totally draining my tank, but there's going to be another patient after this patient. I just got to get through this visit. I just got to get to the other side of it, you know, and then this clinic will be over, you know, and I can hit the reset button. But I think a lot of times when you're just like, you almost want to fight it and push against it instead of sometimes actually just giving into it can be less draining.
That recognition of like, okay, like I'm down, like, and I can feel that something happened, and when you just recognize like, okay, that's where I am right now, it's a lot more freeing, I think, and it allows you to like kind of feel like, okay, maybe I can just get a little bit better than where I am right now, and like maybe that next patient encounter will be a tiny bit better, or I'm in a very bad place, I need to make some immediate changes to my attitude or things, you know, so that I'm not going to snap at this next patient.
Exactly. Yeah, like I you know, it's funny, after doing this exercise, it made me realize how the mirror image, like connecting with patients, really fills me up. And when I have those like transactional visits, or the ones where there's just so much going on that you can't ever really get into the like what's really going on with them, that like totally drains my tank. And so the other day I was in the middle of a visit, and it was like I was really behind. It's a really complicated patient. It was feeling very like someone else is doing a lot of the management of all of her chronic issues. So I was like, you know, doing like the refills and like, have you gotten your mammogram, and don't forget to follow up on this nodule. And I finally looked at her, I go, this doesn't feel good. I was like, so I'm just gonna close Epic. And I was like, how can I help? You have a lot going on. And she's like, I'm really glad you asked. And then started talking about how like all these chronic issues that she has is like, she has brain cancer, and she, excuse me, she lives alone and has no idea when she won't be able to live alone anymore. And she's like, nobody has helped me think about this. Nobody's helped me figure this out. And I need to know, like, what do I need to know? How will I know when I can't live alone anymore? And I'm like, whoa. Like this is a whole other level that we were at, and it set me back at least 10 more minutes, but I felt good about it. I was like, I connected. And she probably would have called like 17 times in between visits had we not had a chance to talk about that, with all this little worry and that little worry, which was all really about this issue of like, when am I gonna have to like sell my house and go live somewhere? So I found like this awareness. Like I can't control the fact that my schedule might be loaded up with, like, you know, those days where you're like, how is it possible that all you were scheduled on the same day? All you people.
You look at this like a crazy day. I was like, did I see you all on the same day last time? And then they just automatically booked you back.
We can never do this again.
Right, unconsciously, I'm like, I'm putting you back in 4 months, putting you back in 3 months.
And you're like, it's all gonna work against me. So you have you have those days, and you're like, okay, I can't control that, but I can control how I interact or interface with this.
So I've been accused of taking analogies too far, and I think I'm doing this again. But I'm really captivated by this short and long tank sort of coexisting, and I think that a lot of what we talk about is with these patient days and stuff is this short-term tank going up and down, right? And I think that's often, at least for me, where my gauge is, like it's measuring that tank. But it's really my longer term tank that has a greater influence on my life.
Right.
Because if my long term tank is nicely filled and I have one of those days, my short term tank just gets refilled from the longer term one, right?
Yeah.
And it right, as a reserve, and it's buffered. And if it's down and I have one of those days, I got nothing left to run on, and I feel like it manifests more acutely, or it
Right.
And I think that lots of the things we talk about, exercise and all these I guess if you applied them over the course of months to years, they could tackle the long-term tank problem. But I feel like the longer-term one is, at least for me, is the one that I struggle. I can fill the short-term relatively easily. I mean, you develop all these strategies, and you sort of know when it gets low, and you know what you got to do to fix it. And but that longer-term one gets depleted over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to fix. And so, anyways.
No, I totally agree. And those days where you're like super stressed about something, and you're like, this probably has nothing to do with this
Right,
thing.
no, it's a
That's everything to do with my
manifestation of
long-term
this sort of
tank.
These deeper root causes, but they're harder to fix. You know what I mean? And so you tend to fix, like everything in life, you fix the short term.
Right, right.
But anyways,
And I think a lot of it is like, do I feel like I'm valued? Do I feel like what I'm doing has meaning? Do I understand like the purpose of all of these things that I'm doing? And I think when you don't, or like I was meeting with a doc the other day, and he's like, it would just be nice if someone showed me a little love around here, and you realize like sometimes it's just those things that make you feel like I show up here and it matters. I'm a part of this big thing. And you think about all like the social isolation that we experience. Like we're around people all the time, but never get to talk.
it's also interesting because you mentioned about physician, whatever this new role that you're in. Because there's certain aspects about an intern or resident where they are in some ways helpless to their schedule, right? They have
Right,
to show up. They're
right.
told in some ways when they have to show up and when they can leave. But on the other hand, they're in something where they can see the horizon, like it's some number of months or years, and then regardless, it's going to end, right? Whereas once you're in a more standing career, yes, you have more of the choices on you, but you're also sort of in it for a longer haul.
Yeah.
So the dynamics of both of those things and how they interplay, I think, is interesting.
And the uncertainty of that. Yeah, big time. So this obviously is a conversation you could have numerous times with somebody. You could have for, hours.
For us.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this, all right, so we're gonna
Who's the coach?
We're going to switch a little bit to this distributed leadership concept.
Great job facilitating, by the way.
Oh, thanks. So this brings us to a slightly different view, but another chance again. A lot of second year is just this processing. I'm glad you brought out that word of processing their experiences, and by halfway through, they have a lot of experiences to be working through. And the idea of this model, which comes from this article that's in your handouts, and we're going to actually read part of it here today, because I realized that it's one thing to have me tell you about it, but it's another for you to be able to put it in your own words. And so we're going to practice doing that today. But you don't have to read it just yet, don't worry. But the idea of this model, which comes out of MIT by Deb Ancona and colleagues, is this idea that if you think about a resident going into their first leadership role, they'll put together some composite image of every attending they ever had and every great resident that they ever worked with, and it's this fierce transformer of what they think they're supposed to be like. And they're probably, first of all, going to fall far short of what they're trying to do. But the idea that if we go into leadership or even working in teams and trying to be everything to everybody all the time, we're not going to be as successful as if we can understand who are we and what do we bring to the table. Who are we working with and what do they bring to the table? What's our environment? What are our circumstances? What are the demands? And then how can we modulate our response based on that? And it may be that you want, like, it's not necessarily, like before last year when we talked about strengths, it was like, here are our strengths, this is what we're gonna focus on. With this, you might identify like, wow, this is an area I'm not as strong in, this might be something I wanna cultivate. Other times you may identify like, oh, this is really a strength of mine, I need to bring this to the table. But it helps get to like, what do I bring to the table? It helps you understand like, oh, that's why that interaction went the way it did. And it helps think about, what do I want to do next time I'm in this position again? And next time I'm working in teams, and how do I, want to be that senior resident running a team? And so the way the model's built in business, but it has a lot of applications to healthcare. And so what we're going to do is think about the different pieces of the model and then how it applies to healthcare. But the model breaks it up into, there's a lot of like, I put most of this not for like us today, but for thinking about when I'm not here. But this idea that like the best ideas and the best leadership come from where the vision really lies and where the energy's coming from, and that you can do that together. The best leaders will cultivate and coordinate rather than command and control. And so if you really work together as a team, you can get much more done. Like, this is not like a big sales pitch. You guys probably know a lot about this stuff. And so knowing your strengths, knowing the strengths of others, and then knowing like how other people can fill your gaps, but also when you can let go of like, this person on my team is great at this, like let me let them shine, and we'll all grow from that. And so it breaks it into these 4 groups. One is sense making, the other is relating, one is visioning, and one is inventing. And basically sense making and relating help change happen. And visioning and inventing really stimulate the change as it's happening. And so the sense making is really just mapping complexities, like what's going on, what is, if you think about an inpatient unit, like who are our patients, who's the sickest, what's going on with this person, what's going on with their home situation, what's going on with, the nursing staffing, and, anything that maybe the ED pushing patients up and everything else. So thinking about how the complexities map, and like for example, like your residents are between UH and the VA, and like when you think about that, like for our residents, they go to this community hospital. They hate it the first time they go. They're like, why is it like this? Why is it like that? Why do the nurses do it like this? And like, it's just because they haven't actually made sense of it. So when you haven't, you just push back against change, as opposed to like really being like, all right, so this is why this is like this. This is why this person's coming at me like that. This is what we need to do for this patient. And then there's relating, which is really how you build relationships. And they break it down to a few parts, which is, one is just how do you actually find out from other people what's important to them, so inquiring. How do you advocate for your own ideas in a way that you're still listening to others? And then how do you build networks and build relationships so that you can get things done, basically. And then there's visioning, thinking about how could things really go? How could you build a compelling vision? And the idea is not just how should we do it, but how could we do it? And then inventing is really executing on that plan in a creative way. And that if you try to do all of this every day at work, that would be utterly exhausting. Talk about like draining your tank. But if you think about like, this is what my team really needs from me right now, or this is what I really need to try, or like I've been doing good in these areas, I want to try to flex my muscles in this other area. And so it breaks it down into these components. And so everybody's a little bit different in terms of what their strengths are. I'm going to go through this a little bit. I'll go back up to the beginning here. And so what I want to do now, rather than me give you like a dissertation on what these 4 capabilities are, what I'm going to do is break you guys up into a capability each. Have you read your section in the article, and then you'll teach us about your section. And basically like not a lot, just like a brief spiel about what is sense making. You'll be our sense maker. You'll be relating, you'll be visioning, and you'll be inventing. And so you'll read your section and then give us a spiel, and then we can think together about how we've seen this in the clinical environment. And the idea is when you're with your residents, what you'll do is you don't really have to like go crazy explaining these concepts. I've actually found the more you do, the weirder it feels. but like it's important that you guys know about it. But really what I say to them is like, we have this cool tool based on this model about leadership where, you know, we try not to like be everything to everybody all the time. And it comes with a self-assessment. And what we can do is like think about a recent clinical scenario or, you know, a team scenario or one you have coming up, and I'll have you fill out the self-assessment, and then we'll talk through, you know, some brainstorming, thinking about, you know, an upcoming rotation. That's really all I do with them. But if you wanted to go further into describing it, then you'll have that information today. How's that sound? All right, so I'll give you guys a few minutes each. So sense making, relating, visioning, and inventing. And then we'll teach each other about it. We'll do the whole self-assessment, and then you guys will coach each other on the self-assessment. All right.